Good morning, everybody. I'm not Chip Klein. My name is Harry Vorhoff. I'm Deputy Director of Coastal Activities, and I'll be filling in for Chairman Klein while he is across the street at House Natural Resources, ensuring that the annual plan and master plan get a favorable review for that committee. But he hopes to make it to this meeting a little bit later in about, hopefully, not more than an hour. So with that, today is Wednesday, May 17th. It is 9:37. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Kitchen, will you please call the roll?
Chairman Vorhoff.
Here.
Mr. Lovell.
Present.
Ms. Aguilar. Mr. Carter.
Present.
Page.
Present.
Mr. Abbott.
Present.
About. Mr. Bro.
Here.
Ms. Goodson.
Here.
Mr. Broussard. Mr. Wyatt.
Here.
Mr. Ince. Ms. Gotro.
Here.
Mr. Burke.
Here.
Ms. Salines Gorman. Mr. Elmers.
Here.
Mr. Bourgeois.
Here.
Mr. Hidalgo.
Here.
Ms. Cormier.
Here.
Mr. Segrera. President McGinnis.
Here.
Representative Zarang. Senator Henskins.
Thank you, Ms. Kitchen. And before we dive into business today, it is with heavy hearts, that we conduct our business today. As many of you already know, Justin Aaronworth, CEO and President of the Water Institute of the Gulf, died suddenly and tragically last week. Justin was a pillar of our coastal community, of our coastal family. He dedicated his career to helping Louisiana address our coastal crisis and be more resilient in the face of it. Justin was a friend and a brother in this coastal family, and our hearts are breaking for him, for his wife and family, and our brothers and sisters at the Water Institute of the Gulf. Chairman Klein will be holding space open later in this meeting to reflect on Justin's life and legacy, but he thought it was important to recognize Justin at the top of our meeting as well. So please keep him and his family in your thoughts and your prayers and hearts. Well, there's unfortunately no good segue from that to approval of the minutes. So I will look for a motion. You have a
I'll make a
motion from Ms. Gotro, a second from Mr. Lavelle. Any public comment? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. We have approved the minutes.
That was needed.
We can approve the agenda as well. Mr. Bourgeois has made a motion to approve the agenda, second by Ms. Gotro. Any comment, any discussion? Any comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, we have approved the agenda. I don't believe there's any other old business or announcements, but any from the board? All right, well, then we will move to agenda item number 6, State of the Coast, Kimberly Ryer Davis with Coalition Restore Coastal Louisiana. If you would please come to the table.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the board and those gathered here about the conference. The State of the Coast Conference will take place for the 7th time later this month, in just a few weeks actually, May 31st through June 2nd. This is the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday after Memorial Day Monday. This is a conference that I think is known to many of you, and many of you have been responsible for making it happen and making it important for this community over many years, starting in 2010. We've done this biennially every other year. We did this virtually in 2021. We appreciate everybody doing that together with us. We hope to never do it again. 2023 will be Together Again, and that is the theme for the conference, Together Again. This is a conference of approximately 1,000 people hosted by the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana in close partnership with CPRA, with the Water Institute, and with Sea Grant. And we really appreciate and value the partners that help us put this on to share information, insights, and learning and celebrate the progress we're all making together. What I'd like to do is run through some highlights for you. The conference will be 3 days long. We'll kick off at noon on Wednesday. There'll be 3 plenary sessions where we all sit together and share a meal and appreciate being together. There'll be 96 concurrent sessions. We're going to run 11 rooms concurrently for most of the time blocks. There'll be 95 posters, and we view these posters as very much central to the content, the learning, the information we're sharing together about the coast. And 2 receptions where people can enjoy being together again. And I think especially in these times, it's important that we recognize the value of spending that time together. Our plenary speakers, we're honored to have on day 1 the governor with us to talk about his coastal legacy and his vision for the future. On day 2, on Thursday, Mike Tidwell, who's the author of a book I hope many of you read called Bayou Farewell, will join us. And I'll credit Greg Grandy with this idea. Bayou Farewell was published 20 years ago, and he was the one who recognized the anniversary. We reached out to Mike Tidwell and asked if he would come and come back and meet people that he'd written about, that we'd read about from that book 20 years ago, and he did that. And he found many of the characters in his book and shared with a small group of us his story of meeting them and catching up with them in Homa a few weeks ago. I think at the conference he'll share those stories again and more, and I really look forward to that. I hope you'll enjoy it too. And then on Friday, Mitch Landrieu will join us. I think that'll be a very important conversation about infrastructure and energy and the role that he's playing now and what it means for Louisiana, and Congressman Garrett Graves. So those are our 4 plenary speakers. They will be joined by others from the community, but those are the 4 I'm highlighting for you today. In the concurrent sessions, we'll have 38 panels, 51 sessions, 7 films. This involved a great number of people, including many in this room. The topics are listed here. They're the topics I think you would predict, given the work that we all do together. I'll highlight for you that we've reached out a bit this time around to specifically include renewable energy, disaster issues, and to be very clear that the flood risk portion should focus inland as well as coastal. So this is recognizing the journey we're all on together. And I think you'll recognize here also the focus on the human dimensions of the challenges we face. It's not just about the ecology, not just about the economics, but about the people in so many ways. The program committees listed here, these are folks who helped us put together the content we'll deliver, and they've done a tremendous job. We really appreciate their help. Led this time around by Denise Reed. Some other features of the conference I'll highlight. There's a breakfast celebrating the contributions that women have made in this space. That will be moderated by Lauren Alexander from National Academy of Sciences. We'll be giving the annual Coastal Stewardship Awards that CRCL has been doing for many, many years. There'll be student awards for the students who participate in the conference. We are seeking strong student participation. CLE credits for the attorneys in the group. The website provides for you information on all this content, and there'll be an app released later today that you can also use to navigate the offerings. Side events, I don't want to go on too long here, but this is something new we're doing. We've tried to provide this gathering, this convening as an opportunity for groups who wish to hold meetings. So Parishes Advancing Coastal Endurance will hold a regular meeting at the conference and then have a public session afterwards, I believe. And there'll be the other meetings listed here. If you'd like more information about joining any of these, there are links on the website, or you can ask me or someone else in the CRCL team. And I do want to thank the sponsors that make this possible. Some of these are sponsors that have been with the event and with all of us for a very long time. Some are brand new, but these groups make this event possible, and we really, really appreciate their support and their help. There are also a whole set of exhibitors that you'll see in the exhibit hall that aren't listed here that also make the event possible. And the sponsorship committee here is important to call out. Our former board chair, Garvin Pittman, our current board chair, Parker Kilgore, have helped us, together with this group, develop the support to make the event possible. Okay. So in sum, I want to say that I hope that we'll see you there. If you have questions about getting there, about being there, please reach out to me or Donna Betzer, who's here with our staff, or Tyler Bosworth, who many of you know. But we really wish to make this convening valuable for this community in many ways, and we welcome your participation. Finally, at the conclusion of the conference, on Friday afternoon at 5:30, we will hold a forum with candidates in the governor's race to focus on coastal issues. As a 501c3 nonprofit, CRCL does not endorse candidates, but we very much endorse the idea that all of the candidates should speak directly to the issues of importance to our coast. And so we, with input from many of you, have developed a set of questions to ask them to speak to us about what we would expect from them in office. And these are the 5 candidates that have agreed to be present. This event will look much like one that many of you attended in 2015 that was in Thibodaux. It is open to the public. You do not need to be registered for the conference to be there for this event. Please consider showing up and listen carefully to what we all hear about these folks and their positions. So if you have any questions, again, please let us know, and we hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ryer. The agenda is always a good one year in, year out, but this year's is really not to be missed. So thank you for putting together with your team and others such a great program. Any questions from our board members? All right, thank you so much. Moving along in our agenda, we will next do the CPRA implementation update with Mr. Greg Grandy.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and I would just like to echo Kim's advertisement for the State of the Coast Conference, particularly the plenary session with Mike Tidwell. His book, in my opinion, his book, Bayou Farewell, is one of the most important books about coastal Louisiana, in particular for the awareness that it raised. Governor Foster at the time really heightened the profile of coastal restoration in Louisiana and the issue of land loss. So I will be sitting in for Brent Haas, who is with Chip Klein at the Natural Resources Committee this morning. Currently, CPRA has 109 projects that are active. 42 of them are in construction, 66 in engineering and design, and 3 in planning. Of the projects now being constructed, 32 are hurricane protection projects, and 40 are creating marsh. Marsh creation leads the way in engineering and design, with 27 projects moving through the construction phase. So we'll highlight a couple of projects over in Vermilion Parish. The first project is the Freshwater Bayou Shoreline Protection Project. This is a project that involves the construction of approximately 7,500 linear feet of foreshore dike along the eastern bank of Freshwater Bayou near Coles Bayou, and the Little Vermilion Project in Vermilion Parish to reduce bank erosion and subsequent degradation of the interior marsh. With a little over $3.6 million in state funds, state surplus funds, this project will utilize almost 6,600 square yards of geotextile fabric and 43,800 tons of rock. So again, I'll note that this is $3.6 million in state surplus funding that came to CPRA, and that CPRA entered into an agreement with the parish to do this work. You can see work has started on the project. After building up a low-lying ridge with sediment, crews start placing rock down last week. So this is this month in Vermilion Parish, right along Freshwater Bayou. So the construction phase of this project, Vermilion Parish is taking the lead on this. The prime contractor is Lure Crosby LLC. The surveying subcontractor is Hydroterra. Crosby Dredging is also a subcontractor, and Industrial Fabrics is providing the geotextiles for this project. Project generated about 30 jobs, not including government workers. So the next project we'll highlight is the North Lafourche Levee Project in Lafourche Parish. This project is a 3.7-mile levee reach. It's a few miles northwest of La Rose. This area in particular was hard hit, extremely hard hit during Hurricane Ida. The intention is to have this levee become part of the Morganton to the Gulf authorized Lockport to La Rose levee alignment with about $3 million in state surplus funds. So again, state surplus funds coming from the state to CPRA to the North Lafourche Levee District. We'll elevate just under 4 miles of levee in North Lafourche to 7.5 feet. As a side note, the Corps is investigating this reach for realignment and reduction of impacts. The goals for the Corps to complete their analysis justifying the realignment of Reach 2 onto this tidal levee. So we'll zip in and see a little bit of construction here. A lot of hard work delivering sediment, shaping sediments that's going on in this particular area. So the jobs created for this project, the engineering jobs were 23, the construction jobs were 47, for a total of 70 non-governmental jobs. The engineer of record is GIS, with Eustis Engineering providing geotechnical expertise. On the construction side, Dynamic Group LLC is the prime, Delta Coast Consultants were a surveying sub, and Tri-Parish Testing and Inspection LLC provided soil testing work on this project. Friday of last week, Governor Edwards joined CPRA in cutting the ribbon on the Spanish Pass project. This is the largest ridge and marsh restoration project constructed to date in Louisiana. The project restored over 6 miles of ridge west of Venice, Louisiana, and built over 1,670 acres of marsh with nearly 11 million cubic yards of sediment. I know folks like to use the Superdome equivalent, so in honor of Lynn Barr, we used 2 SDEs, 2 Superdome equivalents on this project. So on average a day on this project, we pumped about 40,000 cubic yards. So if you have a 16-yard truck, so that last project, if we were delivering this by truck, would have been 2,500 truckloads a day. So if you figure 275 days of construction, so if we were delivering this by truck, it would have been 687,500 truckloads of double axle 16-yard trucks delivering sediment to this project. The total cost of the project was $100 million. It was funded with Deepwater Horizon oil spill settlement funds, implemented through the Natural Resource Damage Assessment Act, and distributed through the Louisiana Trustee Implementation Group. Another project that was completed back in December of 2021, was started in December 2020, was the North Breton Island Restoration Project. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was the lead on this. Approximately 6 million cubic yards of sand was dredged and placed on the island to restore beach dune and marsh habitat. The project added 400 acres of Barrier Island wildlife habitat to address some of the injuries to birds caused by the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. So this project, this particular area is an important brown pelican rookery. So just like the work done at Queen Bess over in Jefferson Parish, that was done in Calcasieu Parish at Rabun Island, this is restoring some of that habitat. Our colleagues at Wildlife and Fisheries have noted the reduction in habitat for brown pelicans. So all of these projects together work to provide nesting habitat for those birds. The project was approved in 2014 2014 as one of the early restoration projects. It was called the Louisiana Outer Coast Project. There were 4 barrier island projects in that: Whiskey Island and Shell Island West that CPRA constructed, Chenier Ronquille that was led by NOAA, and then the Breton Island project by our colleagues at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Coast of Louisiana, not too far from the Mississippi River Delta, and it's a part of a long chain of other barrier islands in the Gulf of Mexico. Incredible national treasure. It's one of over 560 national wildlife refuges. For centuries, really, it's provided habitat for nesting colonial water birds. Barrier islands I find fascinating. First of all, they're always shifting, always moving, eroding, but they provide extraordinary habitat for wildlife. Birds that are migrating, you need a place not only for nesting, but also during their migration, they come to islands like this to rest and forage. The importance of Breton Island when it comes to protecting communities and mainland, as it relates to storm surge, it stops the wave energy, it slows things down. Some people like to think of them as speed bumps along the way, but it really has to do with kind of slowing down wave action and the intensity of storms.
The trustees got together with contractors and developed a sustainable island design that would be resilient as storms pass through, that would be self-sustaining as sand moved around, as it does on barrier islands. We ended up with a design that built the island in both length and width. We're going to move into planting, and we're going to plant cordgrass and plant the dunes with grasses, replant black mangrove on the north end of the island to really create that habitat for birds that's been lost.
USGS is the largest science agency in the U.S., and we're really involved in providing impartial science to support decision making. Here at Breton Island, we're going to be involved in the monitoring of restoration, tracking vegetation through time, how the marsh, dunes, and beaches evolve. We'll be looking at habitat acreage, and we'll also be looking at how the sediment moves within the system to look at island resiliency.
You look at some of the models and some of the data that predicts, certain pieces and parts of this coast would be gone by now if we had not previously done these restoration events. And so doing these now is a part of maintaining and facilitating a longer-term maintenance and restoration of these islands through time. And so there's always sort of this tipping point that if you don't get to it now, it's much harder to bring it back. This island was getting to the size that if we hadn't done something now, it would have been almost impossible from a construction standpoint to bring it back.
Theodore Roosevelt was actually our founding father of the National Wildlife Refuge System. He saw that there was a problem with people needing feathers and harvesting birds. He established a bird sanctuary, which is Breton, in 1904, which became the second oldest National Wildlife Refuge system. I would think that Theodore Roosevelt would be very happy to see that the completion of this project. And so we're happy to just be part of this legacy and continue with conservation efforts. When corporate America, state of Louisiana, Department of Interior, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, when we all have a common goal and work together, we can do wonderful things.
That was a video that our colleagues from the Department of Interior, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service put together. It included some video footage from the 1915 trip that Teddy Roosevelt made out to North Breton Island. North Breton was the second refuge. The first one was an area over in Florida called Pelican Island. North Breton was the second, but my understanding it's the only refuge that Teddy was able to visit. And it was just a pleasure to see that work that our colleagues at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did on North Breton Island. So last month, our friends at NOAA made an announcement. The Department of Commerce recommended $40.3 million for projects across coastal Louisiana to make communities and the economy more resilient to climate change as part of the Investing in America agenda. Across Louisiana, 12 projects will create jobs and boost economic and environmental outcomes for coastal communities. The awards are made under the Biden administration's Climate Ready Coast Initiative, funded through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, with additional funds leveraged through the Inflation Reduction Act. These projects will be administered by NOAA. The Climate Ready Coast Initiative is focused on investing in high-impact projects that create climate solutions by storing carbon, building resilience to coastal hazards such as extreme weather events, pollution and marine debris, restoring coastal habitats that help wildlife and humans thrive, building the capacity of underserved communities and supporting community-driven restoration, and providing employment opportunities. The projects are part of NOAA's nearly $6 billion total investment under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and IRA. The recommended projects on the screen, there are, of these dozen projects, 4 of these are marine debris projects. So if you look at the top project, funding will go to the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. $14.9 million result in removal of large marine debris from several national marine sanctuaries, including the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary, which is located off the coast of Louisiana and Texas. The second one on top is $7.7 to the Gulf of Mexico Alliance. This is the Coordinated Large Marine Debris Removal in the Gulf of Mexico. So the Alliance will administer a competitive regional grant program for large marine debris removal in the Gulf. The project will also remove previously identified abandoned and derelict vessels and fund projects that in Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas that are eligible for funding under this program to remove marine debris removal. So if you have large marine debris removal in your area, derelict vessels, this may be a program to look at through the Alliance. The bottom 2 projects through the LSU Sea Grant, there's $299,000 for the Fostering Community Partnership and Understanding Financial Vulnerabilities to Reduce Marine Debris and Enhance Louisiana's Resilience to Disaster. This will help municipalities with underrepresented populations understand their financial vulnerability to storm events in terms of cleanup costs. Using the Financial Debris Management Simulation Tool, the project will improve awareness of issues surrounding storm-transported litter in Louisiana, and also engage with youth and community groups to educate on the consequences of litter and marine debris and promote environmental stewardship through cleanup activities. And then their last project through the Sea Grant for marine debris is Considering Litter, a data-driven, community-centered marine debris prevention and mitigation project. This project focuses on removal and prevention of marine debris in Louisiana's Barataria, Pontchartrain, and Terrebonne basins, communities that have disproportionately been impacted by pollution and are historically marginalized. By focusing on Title I schools, Consider Litter will build a network of visible and diverse community stewards, students, teachers, businesses, and local leaders who can monitor litter in their communities and compile data that will help inform the resulting mitigation measures. A couple of projects of interest also, the Gulf of Mexico, so this is through Restore America's Estuary program, $4.9 million. As part of this, the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana will be collaborating with RAE to do oyster reef projects. Our shell recycling program, which is very popular in Louisiana, this will help to expand that not only in Louisiana, but also in our neighboring states of Alabama, Florida, and Texas. In the upper right corner, our good friends in Jefferson Parish. There's funding to help complete the Bucktown Marsh Restoration and Living Shoreline. Living Shoreline that helps protect the levee, the hurricane and storm damage reduction system in New Orleans. This project will defend against storm surge and rising seas, improve water quality, and establish shoreline habitat for fish, crabs, and other important commercial and recreational fisheries. It includes the construction of a mile-long living shoreline and will restore marshes, tidal creeks, and lagoons. It will protect the existing shoreline and levee from damage from waves, erosion, and storm surge, and mitigate impacts of future storms. It will also increase the resilience of the Jefferson Parish levee system, which protects homes and critical infrastructure. Middle row, all the way to the left, is a grant that CPRA, Department of Natural Resources and Wildlife and Fisheries, submitted to NOAA. This will basically expand the Rockefeller Refuge over in Cameron Parish, adding approximately 6,800 acres of critical habitat directly adjacent and west to the current Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. It'll conserve critical habitats, preserve habitats for a variety of coastal resources, as well as provided much-needed public recreational opportunities through the advancement, the increase of public lands. Our friends in Terrebonne Parish received funding through the Restoring Louisiana Marshes, Protecting Sacred Sites, Increasing Tribal Resilience, and Reducing Flood Risk. The government will restore coastal wetlands in areas near where the Grand Cayuga-Dulac Band of Biloxi Chitimacha Choctaw Tribe, the Pointe-au-Chien Indian Tribe, and the Jean Charles Choctaw Tribe are located or have sacred and culturally significant sites. Using local and indigenous knowledge, they'll work to refill canals that were previously dug for oil and gas to help reestablish wetlands and protect these sacred sites. Our friends at the Water Institute of the Gulf have a project enhancing resilience of Southeast Louisiana's Asian American fisherfolk communities. The Water Institute will partner with community liaisons to directly engage Southeast Louisiana's Asian American shrimpers and processors, and co-develop a climate change adaptation plan to protect their communities and fishing infrastructure. Through interviews, workshops, and interactive modeling activities, they'll work to develop a comprehensive plan that takes into account specific needs and experiences of Asian American fishing communities. The Wati services, which are part of the Chitimacha tribe, received funding for the Bayou Sale living shoreline design. This will design a living shoreline in St. Mary Parish to restore and protect areas of Bayou Sale that are home to tribal cultural sites. Funding will support staff and technical experts in their work to conduct studies and plans for creating marsh habitat, protecting the shoreline, and supporting traditional fisheries. Our friends at the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana received a grant for the Restoring Resilience through the Central Wetlands Reforestation Collective. There's been reforestation going on in the Central Wetlands for years in Orleans and St. Bernard Parish. This group will work to restore habitat in that area, a nearly 30,000 acre marsh. They will engage local community members in hands-on project work to provide a new generation of coastal stewards with skills and experience needed to build capacity for coastal restoration. And then the last project on this board through the City of New Orleans, the Bayou Bienvenue Wetlands Triangle Habitat Restoration Planning and Design. The City of New Orleans will work toward restoring the Bayou Bienvenue Wetland Triangle, a large and complex project next to the Lower Ninth Ward community. They'll work closely with partners to collaborate with the local community in creating a restoration prioritization plan. So congratulations to all the different members in our community that receive funding. These are all projects that will help make our coastal area more resilient. Wanted to say thank you to everyone who joined us in celebrating Coastal Day on April 24th and Coastal Week that week. We had a marvelous turnout of businesses and partners at the Center for River Studies who were interested and engaged in coastal work. We also had some meaningful conversations with folks at the Capitol, and then we had some marvelous time of fellowship following up with some crawfish later on this evening. We put together a little video that to wrap up the full day. I want to thank Nick Grimion and our outreach department for putting together this video, and we'll see if we can get this to work for us.
April 24th through 28th of 2023 is Coastal Industry Week, and the from a private sector company or levy districts, environmental organizations, you might be a legislator or just private citizens or a community leader.
It's really a big statewide effort because Louisiana is surrounded by water, right? Water, we live with water every day, so we have to find ways to actually live with water.
Supporting Louisiana-based businesses and helping those businesses that are interested in doing coastal projects here in the state.
We work with a lot of bigger companies, but we want to work with other companies also, and this lets us see who is out there.
So whenever there's an event such as this one, we always make a point to try to attend to again let people know who we are and the services that we offer.
So I'm here today to help talk to those contractors, those subcontractors, and let them know about who else we can bring to the table. Having access to all of these coastal vendors in one spot, we love this.
We're going to let the best science and engineering move forward.
And so I wanted to come up today and just acknowledge how valuable it is when you put forth effort.
Bringing our coast back and saving our marshes, our seafood industry, and everything else.
I am from Louisiana. I'm born and raised, and so to be able to work on projects that basically protect our communities and protect our coast, it means a lot to me. It's very fulfilling.
As I look around this room, I see a lot of coastal champions. I see a lot of individuals that are responsible for the success that we've had over the last several years, that have helped us get to this point in time.
And we know the costs are too high for us to stray from the course. We just can't do that.
So as a part of Coastal Industry Week, we did a number of webinars. The first one on there is we highlighted CPRA-led projects that are going into construction in the next year. The second one was highlighting projects by others that are going into construction for the next year. All of these webinars were recorded and they're available on the CPRA site. You can scan this QR code or you can go to our website. On the far side, there's a tab that says resources. If you go under that, there's videos, and then all of Coastal Week is captured. In addition, we had other brown bag webinars at lunchtime. Rudy Seminar led one on CPRA contracting overview and update. Leanne Sharp led one on the CRIMS program. Dr. Krista Jankowski and Eric White led one on the master plan data viewer and data accessibility, and Shane Faust led one on the coast vegetative planting program. So all of these are there. You can go back if you missed it, or if you just want to follow up on some of the details. I think the last slide that I showed that showed funding coming to CPRA and to the state of Louisiana and parishes and NGOs and all sorts of partners, it just highlights that there is funding coming into Louisiana. It's not all coming to CPRA, but what we try to do through Coastal Day is make sure everybody's aware of opportunities. And also we had a marvelous speed dating with coastal businesses where prime engineering and consulting companies could talk to subs. I want to thank Lacey Melanson with CTAC, Rudy Semino and Jacques Boudreau with CPRA, along with Marina Clay with CPRA, and our friends with MRD for all their help with Coastal Day. I think the entire day, the entire week was very successful. And lastly, in honor of Love the Boot Week, we had some CPRA employees that organized a litter cleanup a couple of weekends ago. You see some photos of staff and family that came out to clean up the water campus areas. This is CPRA's second annual Love the Boot event. I want to thank our CPRA organizer, Ms. Jessica Diaz, for all of her hard work on that. I also want to thank the folks with Keep Louisiana Beautiful and the Lieutenant Governor's Office for their leadership. This year, nearly 13,000 individuals volunteered in all 64 parishes and removed over 300 tons of litter from Louisiana. So at CPRA, we were proud to be part of that number and proud to help clean up our little part of the world. So with that, Mr. Chairman, the CPRA May 2023 implementation update is complete, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grandy. Lots to report on, lots of good work. Before I open it up to members, I did just want to kind of circle back. You drew attention yourself when you were giving your presentation, but two projects that were funded with surplus: Freshwater Bayou Shoreline Protection and North Lafourche Levee Improvements, both funded with surplus. And so if if you're here and you like those projects and you like seeing them on the ground, there is a discussion across the street in the Capitol about surplus right now. As Ms. Leday will cover in her legislative update, the governor proposed $157 million of surplus for CPRA. That was cut down to $107 million in House appropriations in HB2. HB2 is going to be on the House floor tomorrow. So there's an opportunity to engage your legislators if you like these kinds of projects and like to see Mr. Grandy or Mr. Haas presenting on them. So just wanted to make that point, and if you have any additional follow-up.
Yeah, my only other note, it helps us partner with local parishes. It also helps us meet our cost share match on federal projects. I know the Colonel is scheduled to come up in the agenda shortly, but that also helps provide cost share to projects like Southwest Coastal, Morganza to the Gulf, and other projects across the state. So it's vitally important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grandy.
How do I turn?
So the mics are all hot, so just pull it down if you wish to speak, and then push it back up if you don't wish to be captured on the audio system. Ms. Goodson.
Well, I just want to say the video on the Baton Island, the restoration project, is spectacular, and I think we need to share it. I'd love to, I don't know, since Chuck is no longer with us, but LPB, I think we need to share it with the TV stations, with public television. It is remarkable, and one of the benefits of CPRA is everybody working together, and I think we need to talk about it.
We will definitely work with that. The Department of Interior, I think they put it out, but we will encourage our U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service brothers and sisters to share that freely. I know we've put it out on our social media, but we will definitely bump it again and put it out there. And if y'all would share through your networks, that would be great as well.
I agree. That footage was tremendous. Mr. Bourgeois.
Yeah, I agree. That video was really awesome. I was personally like the second one as well, which was the North Rouge Levee District 1. Harry, you took the words out of my mouth. I do plan later today to head over to the Pointy building, but I promise you that our legislators, my legislators locally know the importance of surplus. I did want to point out on that particular project that it wasn't in response, although it was an area heavily affected to Ida, it wasn't in response to Ida. We've been working through this process long before. We actually were under contract. The funding came in. I saw Ignacio some point earlier today, but we work on these things proactively before the storms. And in fact, in every area that Ida did get us, where we had levees over top, we had projects working with CPRA that were on the ground and moving forward before the storm hit. So it's much more proactive use of surplus funds, GOMESA funds, and any other funds that are available to us. So I just want to point it out. And then also the public is taking note of this levee system having had real issues for Ida, and there's a lot of things that I've been asked about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bourgeois. Mr. Helmers.
Two comments. Thank you first to CPRA and the staff. Spanish Pass is a wonderful addition to Plaquemines Parish that Friday out there, but visiting that site on and on is, if anyone wants to visit, please contact me. It's incredible to drive out on open water in a four-wheel drive vehicle. It's truly going to reduce the risk and improve the habitat as we continue to grow. Second comment is $4.5 million. Congratulations to Jefferson Parish. Because that is the forested ridge type project that we feel could benefit all levee protection to reduce the risks from open water hitting the levees directly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Helmers. President McGinnis.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. That was a great video, and I can tell you it's a great site. I just wanted to mention it's hard to see that without. From my perspective, that this master plan is a working document, right? The science is evolving every day. Projects that we did, and I'm going to be specific, 17 years ago with the Colonel sitting out there, may not be relevant today. Remember, the islands off of southeast Louisiana was considered too far away from the shoreline to even worry about being a bump from storms, from wave action. And to see now that that has come to fruition, that, hey, they are important, not just for the habitat and the bird. You know, Chandelier's back on in sight now for restoration. So it's just great to see the cooperation, but that you guys are evolving with the science every day and are willing to change. You know, in St. Bernard, we're designing a barrier island closer to Biloxi Marsh. Didn't make the master plan, but it's consistent. And we know over time that that might change, and it gives us hope. You know, Biloxi Marsh was out of the master plan at one time because of the subsidence traits. That changed. It's back in. So I just think you guys do a remarkable job in working with the opinions of the day and looking at the science and engineering to move forward. And thank you guys for doing that.
Absolutely. And I have to credit particularly the master plan team with letting the science guide that things that we thought we knew before, we know a little bit better now. So that's I think that's a sign of kind of growth in that way, and we will continue to do that.
When they were doing the studies for Baton, right, we learned that the Mr. Go was filled in for 10 miles from the Gulf going, you know, inward, right? And that was amazing for us to find out. We haven't been able to utilize that in a lot of the current science when it deals with the Mr. Go closer to us, but we're working on that. And now that the Mr. Go Ecosystem Restoration Plan, that money is back in play. Back then, Mr. Gate was like $3.5 billion, and we're hoping that along with all of these projects, we'll move forward. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, President McGinnis. Ms. Cormier.
Greg, thank you for your presentation. I think we'd be remiss without mentioning Mr. Ralph Lieberset on this freshwater bayou shoreline protection, who passed away, and he worked many, many years on that. And I'm just grateful and thankful for all your hard work. And anytime we put a project in the Cheniere Plain, I'm always happy. And I'm really happy that it got done under Mr. Lieberset's guidance and suggestions. So thank you for that as well.
And Ralph was a very big advocate for this project as well as others over there.
Right.
So.
Thank you, Ms. Cormier, for that recognition. Ms. Gorman, do you have any other comments or questions from our board members? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Grandy, for your implementation update. Next on the agenda currently is an update from Colonel Jones. Mr. Chairman Klein was hoping to be here for that presentation. We discussed before the board meeting and that your schedule does allow for us to move you further down on the agenda so he could be here to receive your presentation and update, which is critically important for CPRA and this board. So I would like to propose moving agenda item number 9 and 10, the update on LaBranch and the risk rating 2.0 up to be number 8 and 9, and then moving the update from the core to agenda item number 10. We have a motion from Ms. Gorman. Do we have a second from Ms. Cormier? Any board discussion? Any public comments? We need a unanimous approval on this to make it for the motion to pass. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, well, thank you very much, Colonel Jones, for that flexibility today. So up next, we will have an update on the LaBranch East Marsh Creation Project from CPRA's Jessica Diaz and Andrew Belle. As they come up, thank you, Jessica, for your work on the Love the Boot trash pickup.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us here today. We wanted to give just a, let's make sure I do this. Very brief update. So last month we came before the board to present the LaBranch Shoreline Protection Project. At that time I gave a brief history and an overview of all the projects that are seen in this area, the marsh creation and the shoreline protection projects. I'm not going to go through that again, but I did want to point out one of those projects, which Jessica is going to talk about in greater detail, is the LaBranch East Marsh Creation Projects, which have open bids and is preparing to move forward into active construction. Last month we did talk about the LaBranch Shoreline Protection Project, and as I mentioned last month, they're going through a finalization of the plans and specifications to get ready for advertisement in the next month, so they should be advertised by the end of June. I kind of want to come before you real briefly to mention that I think most times we feel our work is kind of far from public view. However, very soon we're going to have two highly visible projects that the public can see as they drive in and out of New Orleans on I-10 every day. And when you couple this with the ongoing activity with the Corps of Engineers for the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project and the initial stages of the freshwater introduction of Maurepas Swamp, which will serve as mitigation for West Shore Lake Pontchartrain, there's going to be significant activity in this area that won't only be seen by folks coming in and out of I-10, but you'll be able to see from River Road, from Airline Highway, as well critically as on the flight path of people coming in and out of New Orleans Airport. So with that, I kind of want to turn it over to Jessica and let you give your update.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I'll just kind of go off of what Andrew was saying too. I'd like to point out the proximity of all of these projects here. We've got 4 shoreline protection projects and 2 marsh creation projects to help combat coastal erosion here in St. Charles Parish. So these projects are located next to the Bonnet Spillway and the Lower Guide Levee, the Wetland Watchers Park for youth education and outreach. It's right next to Lake Pontchartrain. We're near Kenner, Louisiana, and all of this is bisected by the I-10 corridor and the Illinois Central Railroad line. So location, location, location. These projects are going to increase the public visibility of marsh creation projects, the CPRA program, what CPRA does, with all the traffic crossing on I-10 in this corridor. So the LaBranch wetlands are used by a variety of outdoorsmen and women, hunting and fishing, and in the Wetland Watchers Park area for youth outreach. So there's just going to be a lot of activity in this region over the next couple years, and the projects will be seen by hundreds of thousands, if not in the millions of people by these projects end. So this next slide gives an overview of the LaBranch East Marsh Creation Project. It's been around since about 2009 when it was first approved for E&D funding by CPRA. NRCS is the federal agency designing the project with CPRA as a local sponsor. It was conceived as an approximately 725-acre marsh creation project next to Lake Pontchartrain shoreline and adjacent to the Bayou LaBranch Marsh Creation Project, which is immediately adjacent to the left of that marsh creation cell. It plans to use Lake Pontchartrain borrow material to create the one cell, and the borrow area is split into 4 different cells to help optimize the dredging of the borrow area. You can kind of see the different cells there in the image. LaBranch wetlands have been an active waterfowl stopover for decades. Therefore, the design includes the construction of 20 tidal ponds and creeks for waterfowl enhancement areas and to support the emergence of submerged aquatic vegetation. So the red rectangles and the little orange dashed lines that you can see in the image represent the tidal ponds and creeks that will be constructed. You can also see the projects on the western bank of Lake Pontchartrain. It's adjacent to the Bonnet Spillway and the I-10 corridor and the Illinois Central Railroad line, which runs across the image there. So the project areas, it's visible as you pass in the corridor on I-10. As you look, if you're going into New Orleans, if you look out your left-hand window and you look toward Lake Pontchartrain, you'll see this huge open water area where that marsh creation cell will be. The project was approved for construction funding in January of 2020. And now I'm going to just go through a few pictures from a site visit and drone flight we did in September of 2022. So this first image is taken in the middle of that cell looking eastward toward Lake Pontchartrain to the shoreline. You can see Lake Pontchartrain in the background. Next picture is taken on the Lake Pontchartrain shoreline looking westward toward I-10. You can kind of see in that picture I-10, the elevated span in the background. just right there. This picture is looking northward along the shoreline with Lake Pontchartrain. As you follow the shoreline up, you eventually get to the Wetland Watchers Park. But I think it just shows how narrow the shoreline is right there at the lake and how needed this project is. And then this last picture is taken from the southern extent near the La Branche Shoreline Protection Projects. It's looking northward, kind of across the project area. You can see the big cell there, and you can see some of the shoreline protection features along the edge there, the rock riprap. So right on the heels of La Branche East, we have the La Branche Central project. It was funded for E&D through CPRA in 2012, and then for construction funding in January of 2021, which is just 1 year after the La Branche East project. It entails approximately 745 acres of marsh creation across 2 cells. It also has tidal ponds and creeks, just like La Branche East. And it's located on the western side of I-10 and the Illinois Central Railroad line. So when you look out the opposite window in your car while you're driving toward New Orleans, you'll see this project. It's also going to use the same Lake Pontchartrain borrow area as La Branche East. So it's in 2 cells. The smaller cell is approximately 75 acres large, and the larger one's about 670 acres. And the difficulty in designing this project has been to get the dredge material under the interstate and the railroad line. So the dredge pipe will be fit through a casing and anchored under the 2 structures to reach the marsh creation cells. You can see there's a blue line coming from the borrow area in Lake Pontchartrain. It crosses over the La Branche East project, and it'll go underneath the I-10 and the railroad line there. So again, I have a few pictures to show from our September 2022 site visit, and these are from drone. This first picture actually just shows what the dredge pipe will look like crossing under the railroad line. So just north out of this picture is the 2 I-10 spans. The Illinois Central Railroad line is just adjacent to that, and then the dredge pipe will go underneath there again in a casing sleeve, and it'll be anchored according to the railroad specifications. So the project area is just to the south. This picture is taken in the middle of the smaller cell, looking eastward toward I-10 and Lake Pontchartrain. You can see the La Branche East cell in the background, and you can also see the railroad line that's there, and then the 2 spans of I-10. So the dredge pipe will come in that canal underneath the railroad line. There's also an existing sheet pile structure that's been there, and so the dredge pipeline is going to go around that. They're not going to do anything to the existing structure. This next picture is taken in the smaller cell looking eastward, again toward the I-10 and the La Branche East project. It's again taken in the smaller cell, but it's looking southward. You see the smaller cell in the foreground, and then the larger 670 acre cell in the background. And then this is the last picture. This one's taken in the larger cell, looking southward. You see the marsh is very broken there, but there are some submerged aquatics in the foreground in that picture. So this is what the project looks like today. This is the final La Branche East Marsh Creation project. When the La Branche Central project got funded in January of 2021, NRCS had value engineered these 2 projects and found that they could save CPRA a considerable amount of money on the MOB and DMOB cost by combining the 2 projects together. So the projects were combined, and the La Branche East name was retained. The total volume of sediment to be dredged is 6.1 million cubic yards for all 3 cells, and the marsh elevation will be built up to a plus 3 foot. Just a little bit about the project design. The features will include a total of approximately 1,470 acres of marsh creation across 3 marsh creation cells using dredge material from Lake Pontchartrain. There will be a total of 39 tidal ponds and creeks constructed for waterfowl enhancement as well. I just think that the tidal ponds and creeks are a unique feature on the project, so I wanted to highlight them here. So and just kind of show their placement and a typical cross-section. They're rectangular in shape, and they're about 1 acre in surface area, about 5 feet deep. And, water will find a way into these cells, and the tidal creeks actually help to kind of channel the water into the pond so that they can fill up a little sooner and then start having that submerged vegetation that the waterfowl love in the area. The project creates the largest tract of contiguous, ecologically critical Lake Pontchartrain fringe marsh to help diversify and directly sustain one of our largest and most important estuaries. It exponentially increases the fish and wildlife habitat quality of the LaBranche wetlands due to its proximity to the Bayou LaBranche marsh creation and the LaBranche shoreline protection projects. And it will significantly reduce the vulnerability of the LaBranche wetlands and I-10 to storm surge and wave fetch. And lastly, a little bit about project funding and schedule. The final construction funding was secured in January of 2021 for LaBranche Central through CPRA with NRCS as the federal sponsor. So after that, final design, land rights, and permitting were secured, and the project was advertised for bid by NRCS in January of 2023, with bids opening in February of 2023. An award was made in April to Manson Construction Company, and we have a pre-construction meeting scheduled in June, with construction to be ready to start in July of this year. So actual dredging is anticipated to begin in early 2024 and continue through late spring 24. All I have for the update today. We'll take any questions, and thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gorman.
Yeah, no, actually mine's just a comment. I mean, this one, I love to see this. We've worked with CPRA for quite some time, and like you said, it originally began back in 2009, and this is just really such a credit really to this board and the creation of CPRA. It did begin back in 2009. We were created in 2006. This was, in my opinion, yes, it's my jurisdiction as well, but in my opinion, it was the first complement of coastal restoration with hurricane protection. It's very bittersweet for me. I have a son who's 27 years old, and they began hunting and fishing these areas back when they were in junior high school. And just as recent as 2 months ago, there were like 5 of them. They're, boys, now they're all men. And the conversations that I was having with them on the hydraulics, the ecosystem, like everything in this area that they've seen, that they notice, that they're not bringing their own children and showing their own children. So kudos to what you've done. Kudos to what this board, started and continues to do, because it's really quite honorable to have my own children talk about it in conversations and to recognize their own friends who are asking questions about what's going on, in this area and how did this come about, but they've seen it over the years. So I just wanted to tell people, a lot of it you don't see, so I love that you're going to be able to see it from, you're right, from the West Shore project that people are starting to call about now. What's this, blip, underneath the interstate that we see, and now be able to see this. This is really exciting. So that's all.
Fully agree with those comments. It is very exciting, just the accessibility, and yeah, go on the scenic driving tour for CPRA between New Orleans and Baton Rouge on I-10. Ms. Gotro.
Yeah, I think this is very exciting, and it reminds me of the first time that dredge sediments were used on the other LaBranche wetlands project, so it's so exciting to see an expansion of that technique with all of these new features incorporated into them. And I was just wondering, kind of along the lines of what Ms. Goodson said, is there a way we can think about a sign that you could use a little code for or something, so as people go by or whatever, there's an opportunity to learn about it. I don't know much about that, but it seems like we should have some kind of educational element available to people on the interstate or other places.
Yeah, this seems like a great opportunity for the public engagement opportunity there. So we'll certainly take that back and think on opportunities to take advantage. Any other comments from our board members? All right. Well, thank you very much to both of you. Moving right along to our next agenda item, Risk Rating 2.0 resolution, which was discussed teed up last board meeting, and so this is a bit of a continuation of that conversation, but I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Bourgeois to kind of follow up and tee this up, this resolution up. And
thank you. Yeah, at our last meeting, we talked in terms of coming up with some authority to have Chip or Brand, whoever might be appropriate, move into involvement in the Risk Rating 2.0 lawsuit. And what evolved from that conversation, I drafted some things, and David Peterson here, who always keeps us in the proper order, or at least tries to keep us in the proper order, suggested that instead we look at a resolution of this board to give us the ability to take a multitude of appropriate steps as they may come forward with it. So I know the resolution was in the package. My goal, as I had stated last time, was for CPRA to take a position against the fact that Risk Rating 2.0 doesn't properly consider one of our major mitigation strategies, which is elevation of homes. In fact, doesn't even take into consideration the elevation of ground, for that matter, in favor of its proximity, the property's proximity to water. So the resolution was in the package. David's here to talk about whatever else we might do that. Mr. Chairman, upon appropriate time, I would move forward with the resolution, make a motion for that.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bourgeois. I would go ahead and read, I think you provided the context, in the whereases. I can read out the substantive part of the resolution just to make sure everybody's aware, but it is in your packets. And before I get into that, Mr. Peterson, do you have any additional comment?
No, I think just if anybody's got any questions about the scope of what the resolution allows the chairman and the executive director of CPRA to do in relationship to the litigation, that's kind of what I'm here for, if there's other questions.
All right. Well, I will read the substantive part of the resolution aloud just for everybody's benefit. And it states, now therefore be it hereby resolved that the chairman of the board is delegated authority and authorized to take all necessary action on behalf of the state of Louisiana through the board to work cooperatively with, support, and assist the Attorney General with any litigation against FEMA to challenge the Risk Rating 2.0, including but not limited to providing technical, informational, and policy assistance, executing necessary documents in support of the litigation, and joining in the litigation. And be it hereby further resolved, the executive director of CPRA is encouraged to take all necessary actions on behalf of the state of Louisiana through the CPRA to work cooperatively with, support, and assist the chairman and the attorney general with any litigation against FEMA to challenge Risk Rating 2.0, including but not limited to providing technical, expert, and informational assistance, executing necessary documents in support of the litigation, and joining in the litigation. And be it hereby further resolved that the chairman and the executive director of CPRA are delegated the authority to authorize that the Attorney General, as statutory legal counsel for the board, or CPRA legal counsel, to provide guidance and, if necessary, file suit and take all necessary actions on behalf of the state of Louisiana through the board and CPRA relative to challenging Risk Rating 2.0. And so this resolution would not necessarily, it would authorize but not require joining a lawsuit, but it would require doing all things necessary to support the litigation. And I see Mr. Chairman Klein walking in right now, so I suppose before this vote, we can turn it over. Continue. Would you like me to continue with the? Yeah. Okay. So any discussion? I read the substantive part, the resolution of the resolution. Are there any comments, questions from our board members? Mr. Bourgeois has made a motion. Is there a second from Mr. Helmers? Again, an additional opportunity for discussion. Any public comment from our public? Hearing none. All in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it, and
thanks, everyone.
Chairman Klein will be signing this resolution after this meeting. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure serving as your chairman, but now I shall turn it over to the true chairman, Chairman Klein.
All right, well, thank you, Chairman Vorhoff. I am pleased to report that the House Natural Resources Committee just unanimously approved both the 2023 Master Plan and Fiscal 2024 Annual Plan. So that is great news. Okay, you're going to have to walk me through that. But I think, according to Chairman Vorhoff, we've got, now we're going to call our friends from the Army Corps of Engineers up. Colonel Jones.
Well, good morning, Chairman and members of the board, and thanks again for having us the opportunity. As you heard, I am Colonel Colin Jones, the 65th Commander of the New Orleans District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come back after my last visit to provide you an up-to-date assessment on the variety of efforts that we have underway as we prepare for hurricane season 2023.
Could you pull that mic a little closer to you, Colonel, please?
How's that?
That's better.
Very good. So first off, I'd like to be able to provide an update on the current status of the permanent canal closures and pumps at the greater city of New Orleans and our ongoing efforts with investigations and temporary repairs at that station. First off, I'd like to reiterate that every level of the Corps of Engineers is engaged in ensuring that these systems are fit to fight for hurricane season 2023. And number two, we remain committed to delivering these systems to meet the 35-year design life specification. And we're going to talk through the ways and means that we're going to meet both of those throughout this briefing. In addition, to assist in the status report, I am joined today by Mr. Doug Glazer, Executive Vice President and Board Member of Kiewit, representing the design-build joint venture that delivered the pumps in 2018 and has been working with us to conduct the inspections, assessments, and temporary repairs on the remaining 16 pumps over the last couple months. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Glazer to provide any opening comments.
Thank you, and thank you for letting us come up and brief you today. And over the last several months, we've recognized some of the issues that we've had with the pumps, and we've been working hand in hand with the Corps engineers, our pump manufacturer, our design team, to come up with the temporary repairs to assure that we're ready for the 2023 hurricane season. We've looked at all the pumps. We've worked with our pump manufacturer and our design team. We've made those. We still have 2 of the pumps open right now, so we can continue to investigate what permanent repairs that we're going to do and provide. And our plan is over the next 45 to 60 days to work with that pump manufacturing team and our design team and come up with the permanent repairs that we can do after the hurricane season to ensure that we get the 35-year life expectancy and design criteria of the pumps.
Thank you, Mr. Glazer. So as you are aware, earlier this year we identified corrosion as the cause of overheating and shutdown of pump number 1 at London Avenue. This finding triggered a two-phased response to ensure first the stations are reliable for this hurricane season, and secondly that the structures deliver in accordance with their design specifications. At this point I'd like to pause and just thank the continual collaboration, coordination, communication between the Corps, Flood Protection Authority East, and CPRA that has enabled us to be successful thus far. As a reminder, these stations are only operated during tropical weather events when lake levels are rising. The majority of the time, the gates remain open and canal drainage is gravity fed into the lake. So over the next few slides, I'm going to provide an update on the current status of both phases as we go through to ensure that this system is fit to fight for this season and that we deliver that 35-year design life. First off, beginning with London Avenue structure, we have been undertaking a few separate activities that I would like to highlight. First off, 5 of the 6 pumps have been inspected and approved as reliable for hurricane season by the manufacturer. Our large-scale repairs to pump number 1 are still underway. Last week, we have received and were able to reinstall the lower pump shaft, which this critical part, we have been able to reinstall the impeller, diffuser, upper and lower bearing housing, and upper lower bearing shaft and lower shaft cover. We are in the process of reinstalling the intermediate bearing. So what does that mean? We are restacking this system and getting it in place. At the end of this week, we will receive our last major component, the discharge elbow, which will enable us to have all pieces on site to work with our contractor, Lakey Incorporated, to get this system up and running. I had a chance to talk with the company's owner last week, Hollis Lakey, and they are working hard. Current timeline has them to conduct a dry test once the system is completely reassembled by the 1st of June, with a wet test by the 5th. But talking with him, now that they'll have all parts on site by the end of this week, they're looking to even beat that schedule so that we can have that system back up and running throughout. In addition, while the team was on site with the JV, they were able to go in and conduct some immediate repairs, as you can see with pump number 6 in the images, where they were able to go through, remove the immediate corrosion, and repaint that area so that it can get through hurricane season 2023. At the same time, as I briefed earlier, in March, to have contingency plans in place in case that we need them. While we continue to make good progress at London Avenue, the Corps is determined to meet our commitment of having the necessary pumping capacity on site by the 1st of June. Based off the lead times necessary to have temporary pumps installed, coupled with the extended schedule for the pump number 1 repairs, I initiated our contingency pump plan for London Avenue in late April. Partnering with the U.S. Navy Supervisor of Salvage and Diving, we are installing approximately 1,000 cubic feet per second of temporary pumps alongside the west side of the station and canal. We began site preparation and discharge pipe placement on the 27th of April, with the first pumps arriving at the end of this week. We are scheduled to have the pumps in place by the 1st of June, with the possibility of further increased capacity through July. These temporary pumps will increase the station's overall performance to about 200 cubic feet per second more than the Sewage and Water Board's capacity for that canal. Our intent is to keep these pumps in place until pump number 1 has been returned to operation and the full design capacity of the station has been restored. We want to send out our apologies to the residents in the immediate area as we install and maintain these pumps. However, it is important to be on the side of caution rather than to need and not have this additional capacity. And as such, we are and will continue to work regularly with CPRA, Flood Protection Authority East, the Sewage and Water Board, alongside our U.S. Navy Supervisor of Salvage and Diving partners to align efforts and ensure we are all working from the same playbook during tropical weather events. Our goal is to never have to use them, but it's also good to have them on ground just in case and be able to move them if required. Continuing on with our Phase 1 response efforts, the joint venture has completed inspection of all 8 pumps at the 17th Street permanent canal closures and pumps. I would like to acknowledge their efforts to meet the 1 June target by constructing a second set of stop logs. And once again, stop logs are just a temporary dam they can put in place so they can go in and actually physically inspect the lower portions of the pump. And that enabled to expedite inspections at 17th Street. This allowed for simultaneous inspections of pumps 3 and 5, and then again at pumps 2 and 4. I want to note that they replaced a missing bolt at pump number 2 and tightened and retorqued to specification bolts at both pumps 2 and number 6. At this point, each of the 8 pumps have been approved as reliable by the pump manufacturer for this hurricane season. Pump number 2 is in the process of being inspected and will eventually be rewatered for available use, so we will be green on our tracker shortly. Pump number 4 has also been approved to be returned for service, but as you heard, the joint venture will keep the stop logs in place to conduct additional investigations on the pump. These investigations will further support our Phase 2 long-term repair efforts. With Pump 2 back in service and with Pump 4 undergoing additional investigations, we have approximately 470 cubic feet per second more in pumping capacity than our counterparts at the Sewage and Water Board. If necessary, we will rewater Pump number 4 to bring the station up to full capacity with more than 2,000 cubic feet per second greater than the Sewage and Water Board's nameplate capacity. Even though each of the 8 pumps have been approved as reliable by the pump manufacturer for this hurricane season, we recognize and acknowledge we do have corrosion and issues that need to be addressed once hurricane season is over, and are in the process of developing our path forward, which I will brief shortly. Moving on to Orleans Avenue, this station may be one of the smallest permanent canal closures and pumps with only 3 900 cubic feet per second pumps in place, but it's no less important. This station was the first to be fully inspected. As the joint venture moved forward with their inspections, they did make immediate repairs while they had smaller pumps removed. You can see some of the aspects as they removed corrosion in some of the pictures listed. This work included cleaning and repainting of exposed areas of corrosion and replacement of grease line shields. All 3 pumps have been restored to service and determined reliable for this hurricane season, but just as with London and with 17th, we will return to these stations following hurricane season to address the corrosion issues and ensure the long-term reliability and sustainability of these 3 stations. And this takes us to Phase 2, delivering the project as designed to ensure that all 17 pumps will meet the 35-year design life. As we make our final repairs and preparations to be ready for this hurricane season, the Corps is fully engaged in developing the right path forward for addressing long-term permanent repairs. Our efforts are focused on several factors. First off, we need to continue to move forward and determine the underlying cause of the corrosion at all of the permanent canal closure and pump stations. To do so, we have engaged several centers of expertise through investigations and consultations as we look at the underlying cause of corrosion, which includes everything ranging from paint and primer, metals, cathodic protection, and microbiological induced corrosion. Active participation throughout the Corps is currently ongoing. We have centers of excellence and technical expertise to include corrosion control and cathodic protection systems out of our Mobile district, the Paint Technology Center of Expertise out of our Engineer Research and Development Center. Engineer Research and Development Center is also coming down with a series of subject matter experts this week to conduct testing for microbiologically induced corrosion. We have our Welding and Metallurgy Technical Center of Expertise out of Portland, also on site, and also coordinating and working with the joint venture's subject matter experts in testing services. Ensuring that we have necessary funding to continue both Phase 1 and Phase 2 efforts, we are engaging at all levels of the Corps and the Army. We are in discussions with the Assistant Secretary Army for Civil Works, Headquarters, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the Mississippi Valley Division to ensure that we continue to receive the necessary funds to ensure that we deliver on this commitment. We have stood up a project delivery team that is actively developing the scope and designs for the Phase 2 efforts to include identifying long-term lead items for procurement and developing a suite of acquisition strategies and market research that is currently underway so that we can be, at the end of the day, ready for target mobilization by the 1st of December. So as soon as we are out of the hurricane season window, we are able to move into those pumps and start conducting long-term corrective action. And as you heard from the joint venture, within 45 to 60 days, they will be coming back with an engineering solution that we can bring to the table with between the joint venture, the Corps, CPRA, and Flood Protection Authority East to see what we can start doing during hurricane season that will not prevent the operation of these pumps so that we can get in front of this and maintain our sense of urgency. In closing, From the Corps, in regards to the permanent canal closures and pumps, we are committed to ensuring that these stations have the capacity and reliability to perform this hurricane season. And secondly, we will not walk away and are determined to identify and implement the best approach for ensuring these stations will perform as they were intended for as long as they were intended to do so. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Glazer to see if he has any other closing comments or thoughts.
My only comments that I would add is, you know, Colonel Jones talked about all the expertise they have. We have the same on our side. And when we say we're going to come together, we met yesterday afternoon and we talked long about, you know, we don't want to sit on one side of the table and say, hey, this is what we're going to go do, this is the fix, and not be comfortable by all the parties that he mentioned. And we're going to attack this together, and we're going to have our recommended solutions, and we're going to sit down with the Corps engineers and come together and make sure that everybody's comfortable with the repairs and everything we're going to do in the future to get the 35-year design life.
You done, Colonel?
For this subject, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Colonel, I appreciate you being here today, and obviously this is a very important issue in and of itself, but even more of an important issue because we are heading into hurricane season, which you said multiple times. And before I ask my questions, Colonel, I do want to just commend you and your team at the Corps in the New Orleans District is your frequent updates, your frequent phone calls at all levels of state government. The governor asked me in the cabinet meeting earlier this week, he said, are you getting all these emails from Cullen Jones? And I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am. And so I want you to know that the governor is printing these emails and he is reading them and he is keeping a file that's about that thick. But the governor continues to be very pleased with your forward-leaning nature and your proactive stance on getting this resolved. I'm supposed to be sitting here and saying that the level of coordination, the level of collaboration is not where it needs to be, but that in fact is just not true. So it's really refreshing to see how proactive you are being in addressing this to make sure, you said it numerous times, the 35-year design life of these pumps. You did mention, Colonel, in your comments that you apologize to the residents in the area. Could you talk a little bit about some of the outreach that you've done to the neighborhoods in this area that will be impacted not only by the construction, but just to make sure that they have full visibility on that there are issues with the pumps? I believe I saw in some of your emails that y'all were going door to door, putting literature on doorknobs just to make sure that there was full transparency with members of the public on the issue and the path forward. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because we do have representatives from SLEPFA here, Mr. Roy Arrigo, who's a board member. Obviously, Mr. Burke is on the West Bank Flood Authority, but I'd like to give you that opportunity.
No, I appreciate the question, Chairman. And as you stated, correct. As soon as we identified that we reached our trigger point to execute temporary pumping, we immediately went through the process of notifying the affected neighborhoods. And one of the aspects in communications techniques was the door knockers. We did leave literature on their doorsteps. At the same time, we also offered opportunities, and our PAO has been in outreach with the neighborhood associations to let them be identified. And then we are continuing that communication with those neighborhoods so they understand the impacts. And our goal is, once we receive sufficient capacity at all the stations, we'll move those temporary pumps out of that location.
Okay. Second question. As I just stated, the governor is very pleased with how you are handling this issue, but the two questions that he always asks of me, do we know what caused this, and what is the state on the hook for, if anything? And so you and I have had these conversations in the past that you are looking into existing authorities, existing funding streams. Obviously, I believe that there are excess dollars from the HISDRIS construction that you are trying to reprioritize or reallocate to these things. But what the governor does not want to have happen is that at some point in time that there's going to be an ask of the state of Louisiana for an appropriation to address this issue. And so I'd like to hear a little bit more about, I don't know what slide it was on here, the commitment from the Corps is to identify the underlying cause, secure necessary funding, develop scope and finalize design, and identify most beneficial acquisition strategy. And so 1 and 2 were what I get asked most frequently by the governor. The cause and what is the Corps doing to secure the funding to address this issue, and where is that coming from?
So, to answer the question very succinctly, the state is not on the hook for anything. We are going to deliver the 35-year design life through it. In regards to funding, we have gotten an approved design deficiency amendment on the permanent canal closures and pumps, which is freed up funding that is in excess within the hurricane and storm damage risk reduction system accounts that we were able to move over to the permanent canal closures and pumps aspect to be able to fund this. At the same time, we are working with the Assistant Secretary of Army for Civil Works to request an emergency reprogramming of the additional funds in excess to pull those over as well to ensure. At the same time, we're also working with the JV to see about ways and means to conduct those repairs. So at the end of the day, the state will not be paying for anything. The other aspect you went to is the underlying cause. We're still in investigation. You kind of heard the areas that we are looking in detail. From my perspective, it's probably going to be a series of items that caused the corrosion. And as such, working with the joint venture, working with our technical centers of excellence, developing a solution that provides overlapping sectors of defense against this from occurring in the future. So that's everything ranging from improved corrosion coating or corrosion protection coatings, cathodic protection systems, and different utilization of materials to be reinstalled so that you get that 35-year design life.
And so obviously lessons learned here is going to be important, because if you look off into the next several years, there are other risk reduction systems that will be constructed by the Corps of Engineers that have large pump stations. And so just making sure that we are not repeating the mistakes that were made within these pumps, I think, is going to be important, because as the outreach and the press continues on this, the folks in Monica's areas or area is wanting to know how their pump station is going to be constructed. Is this going to have a 35-year? So I just think making sure that we are incorporating lessons learned from this situation into future construction activities.
Acknowledge, Chairman, we are in the process of taking these lessons learned and pulling them directly into our pre-construction engineering design on other projects as we speak.
All right, I've had enough airtime here. Any other questions for the Colonel at this time? Oh, Ms. Cormier.
I'm not sure if the Colonel's done with his presentation, but I'd just like an update on Southwest Coastal. So we're going to give you an opportunity to speak. But before that, I just want to say to you, Colonel, a couple of meetings ago, I apparently lit a fire, and I appreciate from you the personal phone calls that I received. And I've been on this board like 15 years and never ever had a colonel call my home before. So appreciate all the follow-up you're doing on that. It really does not go unnoticed, and we're very grateful and thankful in the Chenier Plain area. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
I know you have other slides, right? Okay, so let's just, on the PCCP issue, are there any other questions for the Colonel or the joint venture representative? No? Okay, well, Colonel, you can continue through your slides. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you again, Chairman. I'm excited to be able to provide a next update on our support to Plaquemines Parish interior drainage pump stations under our efforts through the New Orleans to Venice project, starting off with the Wilkerson Canal Pump Station. As a lot of you know, that the canal pump station was constructed under the Corps contract and turned over to the non-federal sponsor in July of 2017. It consisted of 4 pumps at 250 cubic feet per second each for a total capacity of 1,000 cubic feet per second, with its purpose being interior drainage. Unfortunately, due to issues with the vibration levels when operating the pumps, we awarded a contract in May of 21 to repair all 4 units. One of the Corps' goals, working with Plaquemines Parish, was that during construction and repair was to ensure 50% pumping capacity was available at all times. So what that means is 2 pumps would always be online in order to be able to keep Highway 23 dry as an evacuation route for the residents of South Plaquemines Parish. Pumps 3 and 4 were removed first for repairs in February of 22, and in April of 23 were returned to the site for reinstallation. We got pump 3 operating successfully, but pump 4 was recently returned to the shop to address remaining issues with the upper bearing. Pump 3 is expected to be wet tested by the end of this week, or the end of next week, and pump 4 is currently projected to be back on site and wet tested by the week of 3 June. As we continue to maintain the 50% pumping capacity at this location, once pump 3 and 4 are wet tested and brought back online, we'll take pump 1 and 2 and remove them and transport to the shop for repairs. The goal is to have the pump 1 and 2 return to operations in November of 23, and the station will be at full capacity at that time. Really appreciate the coordination with Plaquemines on this, making sure that we maintain access on the evacuation ramp, but at the same time ensuring that we can deliver a full capacity system for you. So once again, appreciate the coordination on there. Moving downriver to the Magnolia Pump Station. This contract was constructed under the Corps and was turned over to the non-federal sponsor in March of 23. This was one of New Orleans District's in-house designs through a design-build contract. It consists of 3 pumps at approximately 91.7 cubic feet per second each, giving a total capacity of 275 cubic feet per second, and all pumps are currently operational. We're in the final phases of the contractor addressing a couple remaining warranty items, neither of which will impact the pump operations, and we expect to have those resolved prior to the start of this year's hurricane season. So excited that we've got that one up and running, and we'll be able to turn over fully to the non-federal sponsor. The one I'm really excited to talk about is Point Celeste Pump Station. This is coming back to Chairman Klein, your question during our last meeting. We were able to sit down and talk with the Plaquemines Parish government, looking at their desires to see what was in the realm of possible, utilizing Section 8152 of Word of 22. And then on the 3rd of May, we received a request from President Hinckley specifying Point Celeste Pump Station as their #1 priority. I'm happy to report on the 9th of May, I was able to submit a memorandum for record on the New Orleans District's plan on how to proceed and implement the authority of Section 8152 of Order 22 for the rehab of Point Celeste, which would include preparation and approval of an Mississippi Valley Division of a project decision document amendment. So we are working with our division to go through and continue to move forward. What does that mean for Plaquemines Parish is we will be able to find ways to utilize up to $50 million in the Disaster Relief Supplemental Appropriation Act funding allocated for New Orleans to Venice towards the rehabilitation of the Point Celeste pump station. We also acknowledge, though, that this will result in a reduction of other elements of the 10 contracts identified to be addressed under that funding, but I really appreciate the coordination with CPRA and Plaquemines Parish providing the prioritization of those projects so that we can work together to move that forward. So once again, this is a great example of collaboration and coordination and being able to move forward with word of guidance and sections to try to be able to support our communities. I'll pause there in regards to New Orleans to Venice to see if there's any questions.
Mr. Helmers.
Colonel, first, just thank you for your attention to detail and your diligence and planning on this and working to help us find opportunities to help the folks evacuate from Plaquemines Parish and protect Highway 23 as our parish continues to grow and our residents will feel safe about leaving if there is an event. We know that the NOV system will be up to date and any improvements and changes, we love the opportunity that you're open to discussion, and the communication, the three-way communication is absolutely great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions on NOV? Colonel, I think that's a great update on NOV. particularly on Point Celeste. So I appreciate the follow-up there. That's great news. And Mr. Helmers, I know I'll be with Plaquemines on Thursday, but I know that your legislative delegation was tracking that issue closely. So if you could be sure to update Olivia, if we could maybe let the legislators know of that. It's my understanding, Mr. Helmers, that you actually sent, on behalf of Mr. Hinckley, the parish president, a list of priorities for Plaquemines Parish to the Colonel or to the Corps last week. And I know you may not be prepared to talk about those here today, Colonel, but I think maybe in the coming months we could have a follow-up on some additional priorities. But for now, thank you on the Point Celeste and the updates on Magnolia and Wilkinson. Any other questions on NOV? I know we're going to move to Upper Barataria next. Karen always holding me accountable. So nobody? Yeah. All right, Colonel, proceed, please.
No, thank you, Chairman, and also excited to provide an update on the Upper Barataria Basin Risk Reduction Project. As you've also indicated, the Upper Barataria Risk Reduction Project is essentially the last major levee system needed in southeast Louisiana. The recommended plan is a 30-mile levee and flood wall system that would be constructed to the 1% level of risk reduction. You can see in the diagram to the lower right, the study area covers approximately 800 square miles and helps protect communities across 7 parishes. The study area is bounded on the north and the east by the Mississippi River levee, on the west by Bayou Lafourche, and on the south it is extended slightly past U.S. Highway 90. What's important here is that the Upper Barataria project will bridge the gap between the New Orleans Hurricane Storm Damage Risk Reduction System to the east and Morganza to the Gulf to the west, effectively closing off southeast Louisiana to the Gulf of Mexico and bringing about a comprehensive approach to flood risk management to this area. It's exciting when you think about this. The term I've been using in my head is Fortress Louisiana. At one point, we finally closed that final door to prevent these extreme tropical events from impacting these areas. And then you've got 7 communities and 7 parishes that are going to be protected by this. So we are excited to move forward. We're excited the fact that the Chief's report provided $8 million to the Corps to execute pre-construction engineering design. And this is also one of our showcases for regional delivery, where New Orleans District remains your one door to the Corps, but at the same time we are leveraging the talent and expertise of the St. Paul District, which we recently had down on the ground for the site visit to include their district commander, their deputy district engineer, and their seizure project manager. You can see that picture in the upper right. Really appreciate Dwayne and his team for getting on site with us. Very productive discussion. And I'm also happy to report that we've already moved through the memorandum of agreement and a design agreement with CPRA, and then just recently, the Assistant Secretary Army for Civil Works, Mr. Michael Connor, signed the record of decision so that the environmental impact statement is approved, allowing the project delivery team to proceed with surveys and geotechnical exploration. Currently, the basis of the design, or the 10% design documentation report, was shared with CPRA. Really appreciate the timely feedback that came back on that, and the team is actively working to address them. This is going to allow us to refine our survey and geotechnical boring plans to best set conditions for the 35% design later this calendar year. Over the next 6 months, they're going to be doing lots of work. The project delivery team will be collecting topographic, bathymetric, and geotechnical data, and this data will be used to refine series of models that will be used to confirm the levee heights and the barge gate dimensions. The environmental will also use these models to assess the direct and indirect impacts. At the end of the day, we really appreciate CPR's assistance as we acquire the rights of entry for the surveys and geotechnical borings, and their help will be instrumental in making this process faster. At the end of the day, we are on glide path and will work to meet the plans and specification completions for reaches G and H, which you can see indicated in the red circle on the lower right, by September of 2025. And that last 9 miles will tie into the 21 miles of section that's been developed to an interim level of protection by the other parishes that in the area, and we're excited for this system to get in place. You doing all right there, Chairman?
I think I broke my chair.
And I'll pause there.
It's a fitting pause. Thank you. While I get situated here. Colonel, I think that is your Fortress of Louisiana comment. I think that's something we just need to talk about more often. I mean, the fact that you we have NOV, Hisdras, Upper Barataria, Morganza to the Gulf, West Shore, St. Tammany. I mean, that is the overwhelming majority of Southeast Louisiana with the opportunity to be behind some form of a risk reduction system. And that is just, I think, is an incredible thing to talk about. And I think would provide great comfort to the residents of Southeast Louisiana. And so it's just a reminder of progress that's been made, but also the opportunity that lies ahead that we must take full advantage of. And so I think we just, as members of this board, need to talk about that more often. Mr. Bourgeois.
Yeah, I like the Fortress Louisiana. That should be a bumper sticker or a T-shirt or something. We definitely need to move forward. I mean, just this project alone, tying it to Morganza.
A tattoo? What about a tattoo?
No
oh, Barbara says no tattoo.
Yeah. You know, this to give you protection from Gibson to New Orleans East in one continuous line, and then when you do the North Shore stuff and West Bank and West Shore, it's really incredible. The other comment you made that's another bumper sticker is the one door to the core, and I just wanted to comment that, you know, besides the folks in New Orleans on PED, I'm quite impressed with the group in St. Paul. You know, everybody is apprehensive when it gets, you know, how could an east-west levee system in South Louisiana being handled by a group from St. Paul? What could possibly go wrong, right? But it's working. It's a good thing, and among other conversations that we've had, Colonel, I just appreciate, you know, as we work through things, there are going to be issues, but as Chip was saying, Colonel, you've shown that you run to a problem whenever there is a problem, and you drag Mark along with you. But yeah, I can't thank you enough for that, because if we, you know, we're all working in the same direction, it's going to get done. Period.
Thank you very much for that feedback, Dwayne.
Ms. Cormier.
As much as I love the term Fortress Louisiana, I'd like to remind everyone, and I'd be remiss if I did not say Southwest Louisiana is not in the fortress yet. And so rocket. And I know there's some funding coming, but I just feel like it might be Fortress Southeast Louisiana and not all of Louisiana. Until that day, I would like to withhold that T-shirts being printed until Southwest Louisiana gets included in on that. So just FYI.
Leave it blank on that side, you know, just to show there's a missing piece. Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
There is also a South Central.
That's right, South Central too.
Yes, sir. Okay. You know, while I have the mic, I hope, you know, there's a lot of pump stations being built right now, and all through South Louisiana. I know we have one being built in Morgan City, and I hope you share with us all of the problems and the corrections. And, you know, ours is being built now, the same process of construction. And, you know, so we haven't heard the cause or the reason or, you know, yet. But I think we all need to follow up and do our due diligence in order to not get caught with pumps down for whatever reason. Thank you.
I don't know if that was directed at me, Mr. Hidalgo, or the Colonel, but I do think, you know, there's a levee consortium that is established under law that is chaired by Mr. Bourgeois, and I think that would be I'm open to a more in-depth presentation on that, so that you've got various levee districts across the state that are hearing all of this information or the information you requested. So Dwayne, let's think through that.
Yeah, I think we're all ears open right now.
Yeah.
You know, and have concern, you know, and hopefully not found it in our, you know, stations. Okay.
That's right.
No, I greatly appreciate that comment, and as our intent is once we are able to identify the underlying cause or causes in a definitive fashion to be clear and transparent with the public so that we can share those lessons learned and also incorporate them into our future projects.
So in a little bit of a defend myself here, I just spent a lot of time in a legislative committee talking about South Central risk reduction, especially the master plan, pointing out it's a 100-year level of protection, pointing out that the alignment is up for discussion with the locals, and every video that we showed, both on the master plan and annual plan, Southwest Louisiana was always first, from rocks and rocks and rocks on Rockefeller. So you got to keep your rocks, guy. Guy wants to take rocks down. Anyway, proceed, Colonel. Talk about going in a rabbit hole here. Oh.
No, thank you very much, Chairman, and really excited to provide an update on Southwest Coastal. And, as you know, this project includes structure raising and ecosystem restoration for Calcasieu, Cameron, and Vermilion parishes at an estimated cost of $6.8 billion. And you can see the cost breakdown on the slide. Happy to report for fiscal year 22, we have construction funding in the amount of $306 million that has been received. We're going to use $296 million of that for structure raising and $10 million for ecosystem restoration that we received through community project funding. We are looking currently at an estimated 800 to 1,000 structures will be raised with the funding received. Happy also to report that we have 27 structures that have been cleared all assessments and are ready to be raised, with 17 in Vermilion Parish and 10 in Calcasieu. Homeowners with structures in the project will be notified of upcoming public meetings in the August timeframe and given the opportunity to volunteer for the project. Assessments will be initiated on structures with volunteer applications submitted. As you know, there's been a couple of agreements that we've been in negotiation with CPRA. First one was the memorandum of understanding that will allow the state to get credit for design work completed for the first increment of ecosystem restoration. I'm happy to report we have copies of the approved memorandum of understanding to turn over to you this morning, and at the same time appreciate the discussion and review on the PPA agreement that will outline the cost share features between the Corps and the state. You know, the draft PPA was reviewed and concurred by CPRA on the 10th of May, and we have already pushed it to the Mississippi Valley Division for final review and approval. As such, we anticipate to be able to have the PPA executed next month. And what does that mean for us? That we can go forward with the public meetings to be able to get the word out, to start getting those homeowner volunteers on site, at the same time concurrently working our design build acquisition process, so that as we move into the next calendar year, we can complete our pre-construction assessments, award a design build task order, and then by June of 2024, begin raising homes with a shoring company that can provide the capability to do so, helping provide that level of risk reduction that Southwest Coastal needs. And ma'am, I appreciate the fire, and I appreciate being able to continue to push forward. And then also want to reiterate, this is another example of regional delivery in South Louisiana as we work in conjunction with our Rock Island district partners. We're having regular discussions with our division, working all the way up to headquarters to ensure that we can move out in a timely and efficient fashion to deliver out in those parishes.
All right.
Do you need to recognize me, Chairman?
Go ahead, Ms. Cormier.
Thank you again, Colonel. I really do appreciate it. I can't tell you the level of peace and tranquility you're going to give these 800 to 1,000 resident structures, because just the thought of them not having to worry about the water in the possibly 2024 hurricane season is a lifesaver for these residents. One of the positions of my job when I was at the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury was that I got to listen to these homeowners time and again worry about the water coming into their home numerous times. We have, I think, 2,900 structures that are severe repetitive losses over and over. Every time rain starts, they start with hives and medical conditions and things like that. And I listen to their stories all day, every day, for 8 hours a day sometimes. So I on their behalf, just want to thank you for the fire that was set, and obviously you've done a lot of work, and I really do appreciate it. On behalf of those homeowners, on behalf of the citizens of Calcasieu, Vermilion, and Cameron Parish, and all the people that are going to be able to have some relief at some point after everything we've been through on that side. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
No, thank you, ma'am.
Peace and tranquility in Southwest, so I like it.
So there's still a gap between Morganza to the Gulf and Vermilion, and that's South Central. And seems like St. Mary Parish and New Iberia have been the direct hit for many storms in the past, and add us next time.
We're excited to be able to provide an update on South Central as well and show you how we're moving out and have a fire lit as well.
And that was just, a comment. Thank you, sir.
I tell you, these fires result in peace and tranquility somehow or another. So let's give some peace and tranquility to Mr. Hidalgo next month if we could. All right, Colonel, you got, let's see where you are. You got any more? I think you got some reevaluation reports.
Yes, Chairman, just really quickly to provide an update on how we're reinforcing success through the reevaluation report. So you can see that through the disaster supplemental funds, 100% federal, we've had the opportunity to look at ways to add resiliency features to projects, and so they can rapidly recover from events, most notably at Grand Isle, West Shore Lake Pontchartrain, and the Comite River diversion. Happy to report that each of these efforts are underway, and we're kicked off with the signing of the feasibility cost share agreements with CPRA for Grand Isle and West Shore, and with the Department of Transportation and Development for the Comite River diversion. We're happy to report also that we've assembled an initial array of resiliency alternatives. You can see those listed below each of the projects, and have been developing this effort for our first major milestone, the alternative milestone meeting with our division headquarters in June of this year. At the conclusion of this effort, if alternatives are found to be economically feasible, we will be able to incorporate them to each of the projects. And I'm also excited to report that, as you already know, West Shore project has $450 million, and the Comite project has $125 million in potential funding already fenced off to construct the selected resiliency alternatives. So we are excited to be able to continue to reinforce success at each of these locations to make sure that these are more sustainable and resilient structures in the future.
Ms. Gorman.
We'll keep with peace and tranquility. You truly are a colonel unlike no other.
Pull your mic down a little bit, Monica. There you go.
So just like Ms. Cormier and Chairman Kahn have indicated, I mean, it's very rare. I've never had a colonel call at home after hours, whether it's an award of a project or what have you. So I'm going to challenge you. You talk about look at Grand Isle, West Shore Lake Pontchartrain, Comite, all these same words, these resiliency, redundancy, repetition, if you will. I challenge you to take, as a non-federal sponsor, all of what we say to heart and avoid repetitions that we've had on HISDRIS, and incorporate those same resiliency features, that same redundancy into all of our pump projects and to all of our other projects that we work on. Because you really seem to, you came in, running and hitting it hard, and I'm asking you as a non-federal sponsor to keep it up, because what you've done has said a lot. So for the non-federal sponsor, our ask or our request in these resiliency components, if you just take them seriously, then you won't have to redo any of the pump stations. You will save a lot in repetitious funding, et cetera, and it's a very small amount, up front, as opposed to 5 years, 10 years down the line. My daddy always said, if you do it right the first time, then we won't be spending any money or, putting forth any efforts that we don't have to. So I appreciate working with you and look forward to the challenge of that resiliency, redundancy. So that was all I had.
Thank you, ma'am.
One last comment. hurricane season's coming. I'm not looking forward to a call from you.
Acknowledged.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, same here, Bill, same here. All right, well, Colonel, thank you very much. That was a very thorough and informative update, and your willingness to come back to these board meetings, I think, is a true sign of your commitment to this partnership. So thank you very much to you and Mark. It's good to have Mark back in the, of course, Suzanne is bending Mark's ear over here, I'm sure, on St. Tammany. But Mark, it's good to have you back in New Orleans. It's good to see you. So thank you both for being here. Okay, somebody's going to have to help me out here. So we have gone through all agenda items. Are we on, Olivia, on the legislative update? The last one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. I'm going to give a quick update on legislative session. We are in week 6 out of 10 of regular session, and it ends on June 8th. We started off session by monitoring and tracking over 80 bills that could relate to our work, and we're still monitoring those as they advance through. But today I just really want to focus on our 6 priority bills. So starting off, the good news, Chairman already shared, SCR 6, the annual plan, and SCR 17, the master plan by Representative Henskins and Zerang, have made it through the full Senate, passed unanimously with 18 co-authors, and as of this morning, made it through House Natural Resources. So up next is House Transportation, and we can be in there as early as next Monday. After that, it is on to the full House. HB 99, by Representative Ogeron, is the constitutional amendment to dedicate offshore alternative energy sources to the Coastal Trust Fund. And HB 116 by Representative Ogeron is the accompanying statutory language to HB 99. Both of these bills passed together in the full House last night, and they will be moving on to Senate Finance next week, and we could use your support in getting these through the full Senate. HB 526 by Representative Zerang formalizes and establishes the state's chief resilience officer in statute. This was heard this morning in Senate Governmental Affairs and passed as amended, just adding in a definition of resiliency and clarifying language. So this moves on to the full Senate. Lastly, as mentioned earlier during the board meeting, HB 2 by Representative Bishop is the capital outlay budget, which includes our $157 million coastal surplus request. Here's a reminder of the projects in that request. This was cut on the House side by $50 million, but we are working as it moves to the Senate to get our $50 million back and ask for support with that. We are meeting with President Cortez and other leadership to continue working on our surplus.
Time out. You know, you just heard from Lori that we need to pay more attention to Southwest. You just heard from Bill that don't forget about South Central. You heard about all of these authorizations and projects that are under construction by the Corps of Engineers. It takes state funding to make those things happen. And so as I have pleaded with ALBL, with this board, with members of the public, to support the annual plan, support the master plan, but the Louisiana House of Representatives just cut us by $50 million for projects that are providing flood protection to your districts. And these are requests that you have made, Mr. Bourgeois, Mr. Hidalgo, Mr. Helmers, Mr. McGinnis, Ms. Cormier, Ms. Gorman. So Barbara and I are fighting like hell to restore these dollars in the Senate, but if they don't hear from you, then we're in a losing battle. And so I got a text message from Representative Boryak. I've had conversations with Chairman Zerang. I know that they're thinking through strategies on this thing, but politics is at play in that building down there. And I'm going to be really honest with you. I have John Bell Edwards tattooed across my forehead when I'm meeting with a Stuart Bishop and a Brett Allen. But y'all don't. And so we got to have some help if we're going to get $157 million, which is going to leverage money for you, Lori, in Southwest Louisiana on Southwest Coastal. And all of these things, the $38 million that we have, that the administration prioritized for Rockefeller and other restoration efforts in Southwest Louisiana. So I'm just asking y'all once again, I know we had a board meeting, I think 2 months in a row now, that's tripped over the Senate committee or the House committee, but we've never had a $50 million cut before. So we need some help on, the governor needs some help, I need some help, and so does Ms. Goodson in the division. So please make calls on that.
Board members, I think we got the message. Let's get out and work.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Bourgeois.
Just to point, you were busy doing the two things at the House committee. Our Chairman Harry basically brought up the same thing earlier in the meeting today, so I want to give him credit for that.
Good.
And so you're not that it didn't need to be rehashed. I just wanted.
I'll say it a third time if you want me to.
Yeah, I responded again that the things going on in the Pointy building, we all need to be over there, and all of my legislators already know, and I hope that everybody else's legislators already know.
So consider another fire lit, which will result in peace and tranquility across the coast. Okay, keep going, Liv.
That's all I have. Those are our priority bills, but to that point, please reach out to me if you need help tracking, if you need us to look at other bills, and want to know when and where we could use your support. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Liv. I'll just tell you that Russell is sitting over there looking like a proud papa. So I don't think I made this announcement, but Russell has recently left the governor's office of coastal activities. He's been in the intergovernmental affairs role for a number of years, 3 years, and recently took a job, I guess it's public, with ConocoPhillips doing their government relations, and Olivia has been stepping up to take on the intergovernmental affairs on the state level. So we still have Neil, who is anxiously awaiting baby number 2. Let's just say that there's McMillan Madness on a whiteboard with the gender projection, weight, and birthday coming, and we're dropping like flies over there. It's because we're all taking swings and misses of when the baby's going to get here. But Olivia has stepped up in a tremendous way in the middle of a legislative session. So I want to thank Olivia for her great work and continued updates. And we'll look forward to hearing hopefully a final update next month. In June. Speaking of next month, members, I want to go ahead and put you on notice that we're going to be moving the June meeting up a week. As you know, the board meetings are normally on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, but we're going to move it up to June the 14th. Okay, so I believe that's the 2nd Wednesday in June. I know, members, that Harry opened this meeting by making a few comments about the passing of Justin Aaronworth. And I am not sure what is appropriate to say or the right thing to say in a situation like this. And I, for one, am having a very hard time comprehending and processing the news of Justin's death. I'm not sure what Harry said, and so again, I may be repeating a lot of things that that Harry did. But if you look at what this state went through during the BP oil spill, if there were a list of people across this entire country that played a role in the spill, the response, and ultimately the recovery, Justin Aaronworth would be at the very top of that list. From his role as a lead attorney for President Obama during the spill, during the response, all of us got to know Justin as his role as the executive director of the Restore Council, and he had oversight of literally billions of dollars that were allocated to multiple Gulf states. And then we really got to know him when he became one of us as the executive director of the Water Institute of the Gulf. And over the last several days, I've really thought a lot about Justin, and it's because his reach and his network wasn't just in the state or the Gulf or the country. Justin's reach literally went across the entire world. And I had the opportunity to travel with Justin to the Netherlands and Paris and Normandy. I was always impressed with people from other countries that knew Justin, knew of him, knew of his work, knew of his reputation, knew of his passion for all of these issues that we deal with. And this is just a tremendous, tremendous loss. And so my heart goes out to, of course, his family, to his work family at the Water Institute. I see Hugh back there. I do want to say that we are committed to the idea and the concept of a hub of collaboration at the Water Institute. It serves the people of this state well. Justin's passing is a huge loss for the Water Institute, but there are good and capable people still there. And so I'm going to end with where I finished. I don't know what to say, but I do know two things for sure. The first of which is, if you are struggling, if you are having issues that you know you need to help with, there are people here that care about you. I have said it many, many times. We are Team Coastal, but we are a coastal family. There are resources in this state. The governor said this at the cabinet meeting on Monday, that this should be a wake-up call for all of us, not just in the workplace, but within our own families. And the second thing I know for sure is this, friends, is that all of us should take a moment today and just stop. And you think about the people that you care about in your life, and you should let them know how you feel about them. And you should let them know that you love them. Because we won't have that opportunity to tell Justin that again. And so this should be a wake-up call, but I know Harry asked for a moment of silence for Justin earlier. There will be a celebration of life, and that's what his wife, Dana, wants us to do, is to remember how Justin lived, not how he died. And so we're going to celebrate Justin's life on Sunday at 1 o'clock. I believe there's been some press releases by the Water Institute. We issued a statement. But just keep Justin's family in your thoughts and in your prayers, and especially the staff at the Water Institute as well. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. Let's see. Do we have public comment? Is Doug still here? Doug, do you want to come forward? I'm trying hard to read that handwriting, Doug, and I'm got a CMP. That's about it. Coastal Master Plan.
Yes. Is this great? Doug Daigle, Louisiana Hypoxia Working Group. The final language on the master plan was released after the meeting pretty much last time, so I didn't get to see it, so I just wanted to follow up on that. I appreciate the addition of the item on the hypoxia task force, which wasn't in the draft, and also appreciate the fact that the language included the statement that the goal of the hypoxia task force is to reduce the hypoxic zone to less than 5,000 square kilometers by 2035, and the 2025 interim target, which is to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus loading from the Mississippi and Atchafalaya rivers to the Gulf by 20% by 2025. And that's really the most important part of the whole couple paragraphs there. And so that's very important that that's there, and it actually wasn't in the 2017 version, so that's very good to have that there. I also wanted to just offer some clarification on a couple of the other parts of the language. It states that every 5 years the hypoxia action plan is updated. That's actually not the case. The Louisiana Nutrient Reduction and Management Strategy is updated every 5 years, and that's a timeline that the Louisiana Interagency Nutrient Team selected. It's not directly tied to the action plan. And then it does refer to the coastal monitoring program, which is in place, and that's of somewhat peripheral importance to the action plan, and it doesn't really mention that. But that really leads me to mention something that is of direct importance, which is not mentioned here, of course, but I've said it at a previous meeting, the BP Natural Resources Damage Assessment Settlement had a special provision for the Gulf states to reduce non-point source pollution to the Gulf, and Louisiana got $20 million for that purpose. And we've been sitting on $10.5 million of that for about 6 years now. And so the trustee implementation group is going to meet next week, I think, in a just kind of a closed meeting that they're going to have. But I would encourage the trustee, so let's put that money to use. It's just been sitting there, and for the scope of what you all deal with, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the on-the-ground work that Joey and the Ag Department do, it could get a lot done. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there again since that meeting's coming up next week.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Thank you for the reminder. And $10 million is $10 million.
Right.
I mean, so we can put that to good use. All right, thank you for being here, Doug, and for the comments. All right, any other public comments from the audience? If not, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Gotro, second by Mr. Bourgeois. I will see you, remember, June 14th, next month board meeting.